8:45. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Here is the news, edited by Danushka Madhavala and read by Indrani Senanayaka. The headlines. Chief prelates of the Malwatu and Askeri chapters wrote to the President stressing the need of the Army, Civil Defence Forces and the police for the security and the development activities of the Mihintale Rajamahaviharya. President prioritizes peacekeeping in new foreign policy. State Minister for Technology affirms that digital economic policy should remain unaltered when governments change. Foreign Minister to visit Kathmandu for the inaugural session of the Sri Lanka-Nepal Joint Commission. Sri Lanka's free visa regime to Chinese tourists announced in Beijing. In foreign news, Hamas officials say Israeli strikes kill 110 as Gaza ceasefire calls grow. Chief prelates of the Malwatu and Askeri chapters reiterate that the Army, Civil Defence Forces and the police are essential for the security and the development activities in the Mihintale Rajamahaviharya. The Theras have sent a letter to President Ranil Wickremesinghe in this regard. This letter has been issued with the signatures of the Chief Prelate of the Malwatu Chapri, the Most Venerable Tibbatuwawe Sri Sumangala Thera, and the Chief Prelate of the Askeriya Chapter, the Most Venerable Varakagoda Dhammadasi Thera. The Theras pointed out that mediation of the Civil Defence Forces and the police are essential to secure the protection of the local and foreign tourists visiting the temple premises. President Ranil Wickremesinghe declared a monumental shift in Sri Lanka's foreign policy during a speech at the final presentation night of the Colours Re-Awarding and Commissioning Parade held at the Sri Lanka Military Academy, Diyatalava on Friday. Departing from the conventional approach of associating peacekeeping solely with the Ministry of Defence, the President revealed that peacekeeping is now an integral element of the nation's border security and foreign policy framework. The President outlined the key components of the new foreign policy, emphasizing a holistic approach that extends beyond traditional political connections. Peacekeeping, climate change and various other global concerns are now central pillars of Sri Lanka's international relations strategy. Furthermore, President Wickremesinghe highlighted the intricate challenges posed by the transforming global landscape, emphasizing the need for a proactive approach to international relations and urged a compelling call for the international community to navigate the complexities of the evolving global order with vigilance and a proactive mindset. To bolster regional cooperation, the President has directed the Secretary of Defence and service commanders to facilitate increased opportunities for neighbouring countries, particularly the Maldives, and extend support to African nations. Additionally, the State Minister and Chief of Defence Staff are set to visit these countries to communicate Sri Lanka's commitment. State Minister of Technology, Mr. Kanakaherath, has articulated his commitment to implementing a steadfast digital economic policy that remains consistent across government transitions. He emphasized that the groundwork for this initiative will commence in the upcoming year with allocated provisions outlined in the 2024 budget. The State Minister made these remarks during a press conference conducted today at the Presidential Media Centre under the theme, Collective Path to a Stable Country. The State Minister additionally highlighted plans to organize an international investment workshop next year aimed at promoting the digital economy in Sri Lanka. The State Minister highlighted that over 2 billion rupees have been allocated in this year's budget for digitization and artificial intelligence, with the aim of allowing Sri Lankan people to experience the benefits by 2025. State Minister Kanakaherath further emphasized that until President Ranil Wickremesinghe's presidency, terms like digitization and artificial intelligence were infrequently used in the country. He credited the President's foresight for recognizing the potential of digitization and AI in building the economy, noting that these methods have stabilized economies worldwide. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation, and we continue with local news. Foreign Minister Ali Sabri will undertake a visit to Kathmandu from the 20th to the 22nd of this month to attend the inaugural session of the Sri Lanka-Nepal Joint Commission at Foreign Ministers level. The Foreign Minister will lead the Sri Lankan delegation and co-chair the inaugural session of the Sri Lanka-Nepal Joint Commission with his counterpart Narayan Prakash South, Foreign Minister of Nepal. The Joint Commission will focus on a range of areas of bilateral cooperation between Sri Lanka and Nepal, including trade and investment, tourism, education, defence, culture, connectivity and people-to-people contacts. During the Joint Commission, a Memorandum of Understanding on Cooperation in the fields of science, technology and innovation will also be signed. During the visit, Foreign Minister Ali Sabri will meet the Sri Lankan expatriate community in Nepal as well. The Embassy of Sri Lanka in Beijing organized a promotional event at the Chancery premises recently to announce the free visa regime introduced by Sri Lanka to 7 countries, including China. Over 60 guests representing the Chinese outbound travel industry and local media participated in the event. Addressing the gathering, Charge d'Affaires AIKK Yuganathan invited the outbound travel companies and local media to work in coordination with the Embassy of Sri Lanka to give out publicity on Sri Lanka as a favoured travel destination among the Chinese public in view of the free visa regime introduced recently. That ends the local segment of news.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Mahatma.
On to the main news story. Outgoing Pakistani High Commissioner Major General retired Umar Farooq Burki paid a farewell call on Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena at the Temple Trees today and thanked the Prime Minister for the excellent support extended to him during his tenure in Sri Lanka. The High Commissioner briefed the Prime Minister about the steps taken to promote tourism, especially Buddhist pilgrim tours to Pakistan. The Prime Minister, while welcoming the offer by Pakistan to open Buddhist pilgrim sites for Sri Lankans, and thanked the Pakistan High Commission for organizing a tour for Buddhist monks, journalists and academics. Familiarization visits to Pakistan to witness the diversity of well-preserved Buddhist heritage sites last year. The High Commissioner said another such visit would be held early next year.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Mahatma.
This is Watchlight.
In a swift and coordinated operation dubbed Yuktiya, Sri Lankan authorities apprehended over 2,100 individuals across the island within the past 24 hours, dealing a significant blow to drug trafficking and underworld activities. The extensive operation netted 2,020 men and 101 women. Notably, detention orders were secured for 12 suspects, while 133 individuals were referred for rehabilitation.
Coming up, World News.
World News, first the headlines. Hamas officials say Israeli strikes kill 110 as Gaza ceasefire calls grow. India says don't panic as COVID cases rise. Gunmen killed 12 people at Christmas celebration in Mexico. Hamas health officials say at least 110 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli airstrikes in Jabalia in northern Gaza. There's been no specific comment from Israel, which insists it is targeting what it calls terrorist infrastructure. Jabalia, part of which is a long-standing refugee camp, is in the north of Gaza, an area where since the early days of the war, Israel has warned people to leave. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin is meeting Israeli officials today as the UK, France and Germany step up global calls for a ceasefire. At the UN Security Council, the US is said to be seeking to tone down the words of a new draft resolution calling for a cessation of hostilities. Hamas broke through Israel's heavily guarded perimeter on the 7th of October, killing 1,200 people and taking 240 hostages, some of whom were released during a brief truce. The health ministry in Gaza, which is run by Hamas, says more than 18,700 people have been killed and 50,000 injured in the enclave since the start of the Gaza war. India's Kerala state has asked people to stay cautious but urged them not to panic after an increase in COVID cases. The southern state has witnessed the increase after the detection of JN1, a subvariant of COVID-19. It has been previously found in several countries, including the US and China. The World Health Organization says all approved COVID-19 vaccines will continue to provide protection against JN1. The southern Indian state currently has 1,324 COVID-19 active cases and reported 4 deaths from the disease on Saturday. Officials have attributed this to the high testing rate in the state, but it's not clear how many of these cases are related to JN1. Only a small number of samples are routinely genome sequenced to keep track of different variants of the virus. Police in Mexico say 12 people were killed and another 11 injured when gunmen stormed a venue at which a group of young people had gathered for a pre-Christmas religious celebration. The attack happened in the early hours of Sunday local time in Salvatierra, a town in central Guanajuato state. The local mayor said that the victims had no links to any crime groups. While deadly shootouts are not unusual in this region, they normally occur when rival gangs target each other. Local media reported that a group of around 40, mainly young people, had gathered on Saturday evening at a formal ranch turned into a venue for hire. To end this bulletin of world news, the headlines again. Hamas officials say Israeli strikes kill 110 as Gaza ceasefire calls grow. India says don't panic as COVID cases rise. Gunmen kill 12 people at Christmas celebration in Mexico. That ends this bulletin of world news.
Development news.
The Consulate General of Sri Lanka to Dubai and Northern Emirates, in collaboration with the Export Development Board of Sri Lanka, organised Sri Lanka's participation in the Middle East Organic and Natural Product Expo 2023, which was held from the 12th to the 14th of this month at the Dubai World Trade Center, showcasing the diverse offerings of over 16 Sri Lankan organic food and fertilizer companies. Sri Lanka's participation was organised with the aim of promoting Sri Lanka's organic and natural food sector on the global stage and demonstrated the nation's commitment to sustainable and eco-friendly agri-practices.
Moving on with sports news.
The Western Province Netball Association will conduct the EBA All-Ireland Netball Tournament 2023 on the 13th and the 14th of next month. The tournament is scheduled to be held at the Air Force Grounds in Slave Island, Colombo 2. The tournament will be open to all clubs, mercantile firms, government institutions, banks, universities and schools. The tournament will be played under 4 categories. That was sports news.
Go ekathiana youth ekata life eke change ekata niyameta set wenna as wahagena dakapu veena habe karanna youth ekata niyameta set wenna friendship eka menna.
The all-new NSB Ithru account, NSB IAM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Oil giant British Petroleum has announced it is pausing all shipments of oil through the Red Sea after recent attacks on vessels by Houthi rebels. BP blamed the deteriorating security situation in the region as Houthis target ships they believe are bound for Israel. Many freight firms have suspended journeys as the attacks continue. On Monday, one of the world's largest shipping firms said it would no longer carry Israeli cargo via the Red Sea.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go එකක් තියන youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු වීන හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න
The all-new NSB Ithru Mithru account. NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
And now in economic news.
Following the resignation of Renuka Pereira as the chairman of Milco, Janaka Dharmakirti, secretary to the Ministry of Agriculture and Plantation Industries, has been appointed as the new chairman of the company. The Minister of Agriculture and Plantation Industries, Mr. Mahinda Amarweera, has taken steps to appoint the secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture and Plantation Industry, Janaka Dharmakirti, as the new chairman of Milco Company Limited.
Weather report.
Showers will occur at times in the northern, north-central, eastern and Uva provinces. Several spells of showers may occur in the Hambantota district too. Showers or thundershowers will occur at several places in other areas of the island after 1 p.m. Fairly heavy showers of about 75 millimeters are likely at some places in the western, Sabragamo central and eastern provinces. Misty conditions can be expected at some places in the western, Sabragamo central and southern provinces in the morning. To end tonight's news broadcast, the headlines again. Chief prelates of the Malwatu and Askeri chapters wrote to the President stressing the need of the Army, Civil Defence Forces and the police for the security and development activities of the Mihintale Raja Mahaviharaya. President prioritizes peacekeeping in new foreign policy. State Minister for Technology affirms that digital economic policies should remain unaltered when governments change. Foreign Minister to visit Kathmandu for the inaugural session of the Sri Lanka-Nepal Joint Commission. Sri Lanka's free visa regime to Chinese tourists announced in Beijing. And in foreign news, Hamas officials say Israeli strikes kill 110 as Gaza ceasefire calls grow. That ends tonight's news broadcast. The time reads 3 minutes past 9 o'clock. This is Radio Sri Lanka.